Hello, in the previous demo, I showed you how to set up ClickDeploy for a simple process flow that looks like this. Notice there's no UAT environment. In this demo, we are going to set up a more sophisticated process flow that looks like this. Notice how we now have a UAT environment in the diagram. Don't be put off by this diagram. The setup in ClickDeploy is actually quite simple. Basically, we have a UAT branch and a master branch. We will set up a CI job that deploys from our UAT branch into our UAT environment. We then set up another CI job that deploys from our master branch to our production environment. After that, I'll show you how admin and developer can move changes from his or her personal sandbox through UAT to production or in a few clicks without using command lines or code editor. Okay, to start off, I have already connected ClickDeploy with three Salesforce orgs representing dev, UAT, and production. I also connected a GitHub repository with ClickDeploy. So first we are going to set up the first CI job that deploy from master to production. To do that, go to CI jobs, create a new job, and we'll call this production deployment, and we'll deploy it from our Git repository master branch to our production Salesforce instance, and we'll make this deployed, schedule it weekly from Monday to Thursday at 9 a.m. Save it. Next, we're going to set up the second CI job that deployed from UAT to UAT environment. To do that, simply clone this CI job, change the branch to UAT, and change the title to be UAT deployment. And we'll still deploy from a repository to our UAT org. We'll call it the deployed, and with this deployment, we'll make that trigger from a Git commit to the branch rather than a schedule. Now let's see how an admin can move changes through this process. Let's assume I have a user story to update a validation rule. First, I'll go to my dev sandbox and make the change. I then submit the first pull request targeting UAT branch, which will then be deployed to our UAT environment. After the UAT is tested, I then submit the second pull request targeting the master branch, which will be deployed to our production environment. Now let's see how this is in action. So I go to my dev sandbox from ClickDeploy, click on the link to the dev sandbox, and then I would go to my validation rule and making a change on my validation rule. Let's just say I change this from 75 to 79 and save it. Next, I'm going to move the change from my dev sandbox to the UAT branch. So I'm going to go and create a new deployment, and selecting the source being my dev org and the target being the Git repository, and select UAT to be the branch. And I would say update validation rule to UAT, and I'm going to save this. I then go to the add component, objects and child component, and this would bubble up the change for me. Then I'm going to select the validation rule that I change, and I would just commit to Git branch. At this point, ClickDeploy would pull the changes from my dev sandbox and reverse engineer it into code and merge with the object in the Git repository for me. Now I would need to review the changes. As it is, it's very clear. I'm going to then create a pull request and create a pull request. that would go to my team for review, and let's just assume that everything is good. I'm going to then merge this pull request. If we go back to ClickDeploy, the CI job would have executed, and it would have deployed the updated validation rule from UAT branch to UAT environment. So that should complete in a moment. And it did. So at this point, let's just assume that the chain is tested and approved in UAT. Now let's go ahead and move this to our production environment. To do this, we're going back to our deployments, and we go into our deployment to UAT and simply clone this and change the target branch to master. So we'll say update validation rule to prod and save this, and simply click to git branch again. At this point, ClickDeploy will again pull the configuration, but this time targeting master branch instead of UAT branch. And if we go review change again, that the diff will then show the difference, and the team will have another chance to review, now this time to production again. So we're going to create a pull request for the team to review. And again, let's assume that all good with the reviewed, and we go ahead and merge this pull request and confirm merge. We go back to ClickDeploy, and in this case, we didn't want to set up a deployed on git commit because this is in production. Either we schedule it or we have a manual deployment. In this case, we have a schedule, so it would happen at 9 a.m. the next day. But we can also kick up a manual deployment. So that's going to bring the latest in master and deploy to production, and that would also update the validation rule in production. And that should also complete in a moment. So I hope that gives you a good understanding of how to set up ClickDeploy that works in multiple environments. And as you can see, there's no need for an admin to actually deal with git command or trying to merge between multiple git branch. Everything's happened in a few clicks and all within the browser. Thank you.